How about 60 Minutes, the way they protected Kamala? She gave an answer. Think of it. 60 Minutes, CBS, and they ought to lose their license and they ought to take it off the air. It's the biggest. How about this? She gives.
Donald Trump putting his money where his mouth is at present, issuing a flurry of lawsuits against some of these mainstream media organizations, one after another. You know, we told you about the $10 billion one that was leveled against CBS News quite recently. I mean, that would effectively put the company out of business because Paramount, the parent company of CBS News, is not even worth $10 billion. But he's going after all of them. More to report with the New York Times, also Penguin Publishing, Random House Publishing, in the middle of the crosshairs. He didn't appreciate any of this. Can he do it? We'll discuss. Plus, the mainstream media seems to be going totally MAGA. Like all of a sudden, they're singing a different tune on The View. They're singing a different tune on Morning Joe. Like, what is up with all of that? And even, if you can imagine, that Rachel Zegler, that awful Rachel Zegler, the Snow White, that thinks no one who voted for Donald Trump should ever rest in peace. Well, now she's out with a big apology because it seems that's really good for business. Now, is it? You got advertisers crawling back to Twitter in this very moment. It's a good day. It's a good day because shouldn't we be able to say what we think? You can't cancel half the country. Look what happens when you try it. Welcome to the Trish Regan Show. I hope you subscribe, share, like. Quick reminder, you can check out the trishregan.shop. We have all our merch, as the kids say there at trishregan.shop. You can help celebrate the USA and help the show and help push out the show to all of your friends and family. Maybe just annoy some people at the Thanksgiving dinner table, right? Go to trishregan.shop. My goodness, Donald Trump is on a suing bonanza. He has sued, and we knew about this one, ABC News. He has sued CBS News. And now he's adding to the list, in the latest and greatest, the New York Times. He's suing the New York Times and he's suing Random House, Penguin Publishing, because you know what? They didn't give him a fair shake. In his estimation, this is a very hostile media, very biased media that has defamed him over and over again. That's what we saw, remember, with George Stephanopoulos? He personally sued George Stephanopoulos, who is the host of that weekend show over on ABC News, and he sued ABC News and Disney as well for defamation related to that hush money scandal, Stormy Daniels case, which, by the way, we're still waiting. Judge Merchan seems to have realized, he doesn't have quite the sentencing authority given what the Supreme Court said about immunity. So he's punting on that one. He's looking for some legal angles. He's not going to get them. So that'll be coming out. Watch next week. Anyway, Donald Trump, he kind of has sort of had it with a media that went after him, took things out of context. Remember the good people on both sides thing? That even Snopes, whatever it is, had to actually say, no, that's not right. You think about all those debates. You had ABC News, for example, debating him with David Muir and the woman who we can't remember, who I'd actually never heard of before, but apparently she also went to Howard University or something like that. Anyway, she was on the debate as well, and it was like David, this lady, all ganged up with Kamala against Donald Trump. Well, he's like, that's actually not really fair. And he's kind of right. The question is it defamation? Do you as a public figure still have the right to sue? I believe you should, and that you do. He obviously believes that too, so you could possibly see an organization like CBS News put out of business for that interview that they did with him. I mean, think about 60 Minutes and Leslie Stahl, and she sat there and said, but President Trump, there's no way that laptop is real. We know it's not real. And he's like, what are you talking about? Of course it's real. Hunter Biden laptop. Well, Donald Trump was right. CBS News and Leslie Stahl, they were wrong. And they tried to make him look like a fool and a liar and then some. So shouldn't he have some recourse? I think he does. I mean, and then they're just blatantly biased when it comes to the likes of Kamala, and they've got to, remake her sound and re-edit the thing so that somebody can actually understand what she's saying. Of course, we still couldn't. Let's be honest.
How about 60 Minutes, the way they protected Kamala? She gave an answer. Think of it. 60 Minutes, CBS, and they ought to lose their license and they ought to take it off the air. It's the biggest. How about this? She gives an answer that was cognitively a mess, right? She gives an answer that was grossly incompetent. They removed the entire answer and put another answer in there. Where the hell? They don't do that with anybody that I've ever heard. With me, they do the opposite. I give them a gorgeous, full-flowing, magnificent, beautiful answer. I call it the weave, right? Always get right back to the right place, but you cover a lot of territory this way. But you give a beautiful answer, and then what they do is they take pieces of it out, and all of you say, what the hell happened to my beautiful answer? They do the opposite. And that's bad too, but that's not like this. They took her entire answer out, threw it out, and they said, this looks terrible. And they put a new answer in. I mean, that's the biggest scandal, in my opinion, because that's election interference. That's the biggest scandal in the history of broadcasting. Right? The biggest scandal in the history of broadcasting, in my opinion. We'll see what happens. They're being sued. They're being sued by a lot of people. No, they should lose their license for that, right? You know, the fake news is protected. How dare he say that? Why would he ever say lose it? They took her answer, threw it out, and gave her a new answer, and they're trying to defend it. Boy, can you imagine if that happened with me? It would be over. The electric chair. And by the way, does anybody have any doubt that they worked with her campaign to get rid of that stupid answer? She's a mess. She's a cognitive mess, and nobody wants to talk about it, and we can't.
So listen, he's going to have to try and prove all this. I mean, he certainly has a few things on his side. Think about this. Remember the interview that Joe Biden was going to do with the Philadelphia news anchor at the Black-owned radio station, and it turns out they gave every single question that they wanted Joe Biden to be asked to this lady, and then she went on CNN and actually admitted it. Kind of a no-no. Well, first of all, you never take questions, especially when the guy's running for president. My gosh, I mean, that's like journalism 101, whatever. The point being, they were looking for these friendly media spots. They must have assumed CBS was friendly media. But his point is, like, it can't all be friendly media, right? Like, this is getting a little ridiculous. So again, launching a whole host of lawsuits. I want to just point to some of them. This is a big deal. I mean, you get the New York Times. He's actually personally suing some of the article's authors that were politically, in his view, targeting him, including Peter Baker, Michael Schmidt, Suzanne Craig, and Russ Buter for, quote, false and defamatory statements about Donald Trump, adding that the New York Times is, quote, a full-throated mouthpiece of the Democrat Party that wages, quote, industrial-scale libel against political opponents. Certainly felt that way. I mean, look what I keep going back to this because it's just the most vivid example of how insane the media is. When the New York Post got that laptop that was Hunter Biden's laptop, courtesy of Rudy Giuliani, who gave it to them because somebody had called Rudy about it, and the entire media establishment said no way. I mean, it reminded me like 2020. You know, the entire media establishment said, how dare you talk out against lockdowns? How dare you speak out and say that maybe, I don't know, the virus might have come from the lab in Wuhan, China, where they're actually working on how to develop this particular virus? I mean, we can't say these things. You couldn't say these things. And that's a pretty scary thing. What you could say was Donald Trump was bad. Donald Trump was awful. Donald Trump was Hitler. And he's saying, hang on, this was false. It was defamatory. And you deserve to be sued for it. Because you know what? It's still a free country. This is still America after all. I get he's a public figure, okay? And when you're a public figure, you kind of don't get the same benefit as somebody who's not a public figure. That said, when it becomes that egregious and then insane, and they're talking about the Russian tape, remember that one? That was all a bunch of bogus nonsense. I mean, at some point, where's the responsibility? They do become, if you would, mouthpieces for an establishment, a regime, and it becomes a threat, frankly, to the overall well-being of our society. That's what's happened. So it's a 19-page brief. They're seeking $10 billion in damages for CBS in particular, accusing CBS of, quote, going into overdrive to get Kamala elected. Now, the reason it's kind of an issue when it comes to CBS is that they're going over the airwaves, right? They're going over the FCC airwaves. It's a little different over here where I can have an opinionated show and say whatever I want for the most part. But, you know, I am very responsible and I wouldn't do crazy stuff or say crazy things out of respect for myself, out of respect for you guys. But apparently, they're totally fine doing all the crazy stuff over at these mainstream media outlets like CBS or like the New York Times. So he's accusing this outlet of, quote, partisan and unlawful acts of voter interference through malicious, deceptive, and substantial news distortion. Wow. Okay, so that's just CBS. He's also going after, as I said, the New York Times. He's going after Penguin Random House, the Daily Beast. And this is what happens, right? You cannot make up lies about someone, print them as fact, and think it's perfectly fine. He also has complained to the Federal Election Commission about the Washington Post owned by Jeff Bezos, saying that the Post, which you'll remember, refused to endorse a candidate, maybe in part because of this stuff, that the allegations he's making, I guess, against Donald Trump, he's making these allegations of illegal, in-kind contributions to Harris's campaign. That's sort of fascinating. So when the Washington Post is just over and over and over and over again printing all this whatever, and it's all pro-Kamala and anti-Trump, at what point does that become almost, if you would, kind of like a political donation? And as this, quote, newspaper of record, should you really be that far extended? It's an interesting question and may have contributed into why Jeff Bezos said, you know what, we're not going to actually endorse candidates in the future. I think that was a wise decision. I mean, if you present yourself as journalism with a capital J, then why are you going around stumping for this candidate or that candidate? I mean, unless there's money involved. Ha! Is that what this is? Is this just pure capitalism? Was it money? Because, you know, I know Reverend Al Sharpton is caught up in a bit of a scandal with MSNBC. Apparently his organization collected some $500,000 before he sat down on MSNBC with Kamala Harris. I mean, you get Oprah Winfrey, who's like, no, I didn't do this. I didn't get any money. But Harpo Productions got money, $1 million, according to the Washington Examiner, who has reviewed all of the election filings. I mean, this is bad. This is really, 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 really bad. And he should be suing. He should go after all of them. I'm happy to see this because you know what? We need some sanity restored to the media one of these days. I wonder how sick he is of having to watch the likes of Whoopi Goldberg. How about this? You know, when she couldn't even say his name, she had to spit when she did.
Listen, take him seriously and take him literally.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that we have to, I think it would be remiss of us to not say, Joe Biden knows how to do this.
Yes.
He knows how to do this. He's quite good at this. And, you know, you can't refute anything with him because he just, when I say him, I mean...
He rambles.
Trump.
Yeah.
He tends to just...
But can I mention one thing?
Okay, so it was like this every single day, nonstop, over there at The View. And I suspect that all this stuff kind of adds up to kind of an advertising in kind, if you would. I mean, it's funny because it completely backfired. Spectacularly backfired. People were so sick of this that, you know, they're like, I don't trust that mainstream media anymore. I don't want to hear those lies. And so they saw through it. But does it change the fact that they're defaming him in the process if they're saying things that are not true? And to be very clear, the reason this is important right now is because not just Donald Trump, but because anybody who comes along and represents a different point of view than the establishment elites in the media, they represent a threat to them, and they're going to go after them with everything they've got. Remember when they said Mitt Romney was going to put blacks back in chains? Or do you remember when for 5 minutes they thought that Ron DeSantis actually had a shot and that Donald Trump might not run and that Ron DeSantis was going to be the candidate for president? How quickly they turned on him. Whoopi Goldberg, the same Whoopi that can't say Trump without spitting, she started saying that Ron DeSantis was doing what he could to erase black people. Wow. I mean, doesn't he deserve to sue too? Listen.
I'm tired of explaining it.
Yeah.
I'm tired of explaining it.
Yeah.
You know? And just so we're clear, we're not going anywhere. We've been here, Mr. DeSantis. Many of us have been here for generations. Can you say the same?
I don't think he can.
And by the
No, I don't think he can.
by the way, he's not that this is what matters. He's undercut his best argument was electability against Trump. I'm the more electable candidate. In the past few weeks alone, in addition to this fiasco around AP Black History, he's also had to let a staffer go for sharing a outright Nazi meme. He's put out that insane anti-LGBTQ Pride Month video that he never, I don't believe, denounced. And every day there's just a new report of like chaos within his campaign. He keeps, and you guys know, I once liked DeSantis. I was like, oh, he seems interesting. He's revealing
you
himself.
liked him
and he's
until
shrinking.
apparently it wasn't expedient for you to like him anymore. But you heard Whoopi, right? She's worried that DeSantis was going to erase black people. I bring that up because it's important for everybody to understand. This is not, I mean, Trump's the guy who's like fighting back with all he's got. But it's not exclusive to Donald Trump. This is what they do to Republicans. This is their line of attack. I mean, you can go all the way back to the days of Barry Goldwater. They were trying to call him a Nazi. Barry Goldwater, and this is what they do. Okay, so here we are, and you got somebody who's like, I'm not gonna take it. Sue. And then the media is like, oh my goodness, this is such a threat. The Committee to Protect Journalists is calling Trump's threats against the press a, quote, clear and direct danger to media freedom. Well, what about the clear and direct danger to people's reputations? To their own personal lives when you say all kinds of things about them? I think they ought to have some recourse. Isn't that why we have a legal system? All right, New York Times, you better be careful what you print. Because if you print something that's wrong or that is basically something that could be construed as libel, then guess what? You deserve to be sued. Nobody's actually been willing to take on the establishment before. They all sit there and they take it. And now suddenly you got a guy who's like, I don't think so. We're going to play by a more fair set of rules. And that's good news. Very, very good news.
Last night, millions of Americans tuned in to one of the most shameful hours we have ever seen on cable television.
I'm showing you this clip. Because, do you remember Tucker Carlson? He dared to go in a direction that the establishment didn't want him to go. Hey, yours truly guilty of the exact same thing. When I saw the market falling out of bed, 2,000 points in one day, I'm like, okay, enough is enough. CNN needs to get off of its plane crash, terrifying, constant 24/7 coverage of COVID and like take a deep breath, and we got to be like sensible about this, because I knew we were going to shut down our country. I'm like, this is kind of getting a little out of hand, guys. And you knew what they would do with that, right? You knew what they would do with that. I knew what they would do with that. And the media went nuts. Thank goodness they did. I wouldn't be here with you right now had that not happened. But the same thing happened because Tucker Carlson dared to go out and say, hey, I'm going to expose what J6 may actually have been. Let me go get all the tape. We don't need to have Nancy Pelosi's daughter's edited version, the documentary filmmaker that she is, version of this. I'm going to go get the actual raw tape and show it to people. And they went bonkers. I guarantee you, Chuck Schumer is one of the reasons why they fed Tucker Carlson to the wolves. They made a decision. And by the way, he wasn't even wrapped up in all that Dominion stuff. I mean, that's their own stupidity, frankly, because they didn't have a legal chief that was smart enough to be able to, contain the newsroom, if you would, and understand their own vulnerabilities surrounding that. So they had to pay nearly $1 billion. But that actually wasn't Tucker that was out over his skis on that one. But they decided to get rid of him. What? Because of this. Let's go back and watch Schumer.
Last night, millions of Americans tuned in to one of the most shameful hours we have ever seen on cable television. Fox News host Tucker Carlson ran a lengthy segment last night arguing the January 6th Capitol attack was not a violent insurrection. I don't think I've ever seen a primetime cable news anchor manipulate his viewers the way Mr. Carlson did last night. I don't think I've ever seen an anchor treat the American people and American democracy with such disdain.
There's nothing that shameful that has ever appeared on American television in the history of the media.
Yeah, like, did you notice how he wasn't allowed to continue that series the following week? And then he was gone. So you wonder how that works, right? I'll tell you how it works. There's an establishment elite that makes the decisions about where we're going at all times. And if you are not in sync with that, you're on the outs. Well, guess what? There's a new establishment elite. America just elected a new establishment elite. So that means we ought to be able to say what we think. We ought to be able to have real conversations, explore truth. I'm excited. By the way, quick shout out for the store because Christmas is coming up. The trishregan.shop, everyone, and a quick reminder to make sure you subscribe to this. But I will say this, you know what, Tucker Carlson? No sooner did that all happen than this happened.
We have some news from within our Fox family. Fox News Media and Tucker Carlson have mutually agreed to part ways. Tucker's last show was this past Friday. And starting tonight, Fox News Tonight will air live at 8 p.m. Eastern. It will be an interim show with rotating Fox News personalities until a new
And
host.
there you go. The rest is history, right? I'll tell you, these guys, they're in charge. And they don't want anybody else in the way. So what's kind of great about right now is that things, they are a-changing, as they say. Twitter, remember Twitter? So Elon Musk, of course, got Twitter. Good thing about America when someone can have just billions and billions of dollars to go out and help protect the freedom of speech by going out and just buying Twitter. Twitter, which had taken the president of the United States off its platform. I mean, the chaos here, the insanity of all of it is just wild. So anyway, once Elon got Twitter, then it was no go. He slashed 80% of the staff, and there was a lot more allowed on the platform, more breathing room, shall we say. You didn't have to just be so scared of everything and anything. And so Disney got a little jealous. Others got a little bit jealous, and they decided in this cancel culture world, you could just shut it all off. And maybe they could just put Twitter out of business. Elon Musk was not happy, not one bit. I'm going to have to try and be careful with some of the profanity. That's how unhappy he was. Let's take a listen. Elon Musk sitting down when this all went down with CNBC at a conference and calling Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, out because they were withholding money, withholding advertising from Twitter. There's a happy ending here because they're all coming back. But watch.
Obviously, you know that there's a public perception that, and you're clarifying this now, but there's a public perception that that was part of a apology tour, if you will. That this had been said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck.
But
go.
Okay. You know what he said.
Clear?
You know what he said.
I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
well, let me ask you then.
That's how I feel. Don't advertise.
How do you think then about the economics of X? If part of the underlying model, at least today, and maybe it needs to shift, maybe the answer is it needs to shift away from advertising. If you believe that this is the one part of your business where you will be beholden to those who have this view, what do you do?
Why?
Okay, so you get the point, right? So he was willing to go it alone. He fired 80% of the staff. And guess what? Twitter exploded. Twitter's done great. Twitter is where you still get your news and information every day. It's where things break first. You always check Twitter before you check anything else. And so as a result, perhaps of this big shift, of this big change, and this new momentum with a new sheriff in town, guess what? Look who's coming back, okay? Comcast, oh, that would be MSNBC. Disney, IBM, all among the advertisers returning to X after that big ad freeze. They tried to freeze them out, but guess who's in charge now? It's kind of glorious, isn't it? I mean, this is the way it should be. Americans have spoken, and corporate America has to listen up. Well, some people are still kind of angry. People like the former head of, KJP took her place, the former head of the PR staff there at the White House, Jen Psaki, AKA Peppermint Patty. Oh, she's really furious about it. I'll take a listen.
I got started in Democratic politics. You know, most of it was like local TV ads. That was what it was about. Obviously, national TV, local print. Those local TV is held to a higher standard of accountability than social media platforms in terms of having accurate information on their platforms. That is crazy. And so it is, how does it change? How are people held to account? Laws have to change.
Okay, so she wants lots of changes coming up. You know, clearly they just don't trust you as a consumer to get anything right. They do not trust you to be able to figure out anything at all. Somehow it has to be spoon-fed to you after being wiped clean by these mainstream media organizations, and they're going to deliver it to you straight. Yeah, right. I'm sorry. I'm sick of it. I am sick of the legacy media. I'm sick of the nonsense. I'm sick of it from what we see on Wall Street as well. Again, I go back to that day. I don't think the market's down 2,000 points. Are you guys crazy? You know, it's a new day. It's a new era, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity. A lot of opportunity. It's one of the reasons I created 76 Research, 76research.com. You can go there and sign up, or go to Invest in MAGA, investinmaga.com. We have a free guide to how to invest in this new economy. We also have a lot of portfolios, 3 different portfolios. You can get all of them if you sign up for the Founders Club there at 76research.com, or go to Invest in MAGA. At least get the free stuff. Get on the email list so you're understanding and digesting all of these changes that are happening in our economy, because I'm telling you, this is just the beginning. There's going to be a lot technologically speaking, industrially speaking, and it's going to be good for America. I'm excited about it. You know that. I've been excited about it for a while. And, you know, I believe in the markets and America no matter what. I am a patriot above anything else, but I do think that there's going to be some pretty special opportunities ahead, and I want to help you understand that. So we walk through the sectors, we give you some actual names. Go to investinmaga.com. That's my friend Rob Horton, who's my co-founder there at 76 Research. He invested billions of dollars over the years. He ran billions of dollars, I should say, on Wall Street for decades, and we've got them, guys. We've got them. So the research is top tier. And the whole idea here is let's get it out to as many people so as many people as possible can take part in this. Don't let the legacy media, the Bloombergs and the CNBCs, I've worked for both, of the world prevent you from really understanding what's real. So investinmaga.com. I'll tell you this, this is amazing that we're seeing this in real time, this sudden shift. The media who hated Donald Trump, gosh, they couldn't even say his name without Whoopi spitting on The View, is suddenly saying, maybe we need to rethink what we're doing. Case in point, ABC brass now scrambling to bring in a pro-Trump voice to The View and other shows. They're in a panic mode. They're in a panic mode because they realize, ratings suck. Nobody's watching them. And they kind of got to come up with a new shtick. I mean, they can't just bash them for the next 4 years. Viewers aren't there. The country voted for him, not just the Electoral College. Nobody will tell you this on MSNBC or ABC for that matter right now, but also the popular vote. That's a big deal. Donald Trump won the popular vote. So Americans like what he's doing. New article in the New York Post saying ABC News brass, they're in panic mode. They're hunting for conservative voices as we speak in order to balance the rabid anti-Trump rhetoric that is spewed on that network nonstop. So they're looking for someone. I'm going to tell you, you know what, guys? We don't want to help you. We really don't. I mean, any conservative that would go on that show, they're not really a conservative. Oh, you can say we're trying to do our part, get the message out. You got to be some kind of masochistic idiot, frankly, to do that show. I mean, that is one god-awful show. No, we don't need to help them. Let's let them sink. They're going to sink fast. Heck, they're so desperate. They get this lady out there saying she doesn't even want to see family this Thanksgiving because, if anybody voted for Trump, it's unforgivable.
I really do feel that this candidate, President-elect Trump, is just a different type of candidate. From the things he's said and the things he's done and the things he will do, it's more of a moral issue for me. And I think it's more of a moral issue for other people. We're just, I would say it was different when, let's say, Bush got elected.
Oh, please.
You may not have agreed with his policies, but you didn't feel like he was a deeply flawed person, deeply flawed by character, deeply flawed in morality.
Okay, you wonder why the brass is freaking out. She's still continuing with that same line that really didn't get him very far. First of all, it didn't work. Americans voted for Donald Trump. Second of all, their ratings are crashing. So what are they to do? I'll tell you. Somebody over at MSNBC is reading the tea leaves a little bit better than they are at The View. You get Joe Scarborough, who amazingly, presto, he was like a new person the day after the election happened. The day before, he's in his schleppy outfit, his hoodie and everything, looking real cash on set, ranting and raving about how only Nazis would vote for Donald Trump. And the next morning, suit and tie like Tucker 2.0, and here he is saying, I'm just a white Southern conservative. I'm sorry, Joe, who are you?
After puberty and competing against women. And I'm not just saying this the day after the election. I've been saying this for years.
No, you haven't.
This is not a hard call. You can show compassion and you can show grace. And as the Republican governor of Utah said, let's figure out a way to do this. But one way we don't do this is by allowing men who transition after puberty competing against young girls who have been working their entire lives to be as good as they can be, and then they get destroyed in the pool, on the track, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, silence. Right? So he, again, is better at reading the tea leaves than, say, the Sunny Houstons of the world. Interestingly, Whoopi has been very, very quiet. She's barely said boo. And some of the other hosts said, oh, no, well, we have to see our family this Thanksgiving. Even Ana Navarro's like, oh, but my husband has all these grandkids and we can't not see the grandkids because the parents voted for Trump. Yeah, hello. Joe is no fool. Don't believe any of it. Not for 2 seconds. You can believe this. Viewership. Woo, way down, okay? So it's so bad at MSNBC, it's bad at CNN too, that they're looking at now selling the network. They're trying to spin it off. They want to keep NBC and the streaming side, Peacock, separate from the cable entities, which, let's face it, are just over anyway. Like cable news, dead. Forget network. Cable's dead. This is where it's at. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. But this is the new medium of the future. And this is where, one, advertisers want to be because you can actually reach your customers so directly with a very sort of different kind of, mechanism to do it. I mean, here I am. At some point, you're going to hear me talk about my vitamins, which I legitimately take and have legitimately helped my vitamin D levels. But that's a very different thing because you're watching me, right? You trust me, hopefully. It's very different than getting a commercial, which you're going to just fast forward through, or you're going to just not watch altogether because you flip to another channel in mainstream media. So mainstream media is dead for a whole variety of reasons, including the fact that they just keep lying to us. But in the meantime, as they look at these low ratings, they got to do something, right? They got to hemorrhage the losses. How do they do that? Well, for starters, maybe you spend a little less money on the payroll. That's what's going on over at CNN. They can't afford all those high-priced anchors over there. So now we're getting word that one of the biggies has been fired. Chris Wallace seems to be the first victim of those layoffs. There's going to be more. The expectation is they are going to get rid of some of the high-priced talent because it's just a different medium, right? Like it just doesn't make any sense anymore to pay these huge rates. So he's gone. He was let go. He's trying to say he's going to like pursue a podcast. We wish him luck. But the network overall has revealed that they're going to have mass layoffs. And it's very interesting to me that Chris was the first to go. You know, there's an article, let me see if I can find it for you, in Puck News. Again, sort of a new media company, right? And Puck News actually points out that they were canceling his shows. He has 2 shows that, you know, I didn't even know were actually on. I thought it was part of their digital platform. Remember they had the digital platform and then they canceled the digital platform because that was a disaster. And then somehow he still had these 2 shows. I don't know where they aired, but they were getting rid of both of them because apparently nobody watched them if they did air. And so those were gone. And they were paying him a lot of money, millions of dollars. So thus is the reality of the world. Now, he will spin it. He's trying to get ahead of the news and say, I'm going to go do a podcast. Good luck. I'm not sure who's going to listen because I'm not really sure what he stands for other than more establishment. And he's not even establishment enough. I mean, at least Rachel Maddow takes you down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories in a rather entertaining way. If Chris is just trying to be middle of the road, but he's not really middle of the road, he's really actually pretty left, then that's not going to have a market. Like, there's no one that wants to see that. Remember this great clip I've showed you guys before, but it's epic. You've got to watch it. This is Donald Trump and Chris Wallace back in 2020. And, you know, Wallace was trying to pin him down. I'm sure he was so happy he finally got an interview with the president. I don't think the president liked him very much. And the president would come on my show and go on with Maria Bartiromo or Lou Dobbs. But he really didn't like going on with Chris Wallace. Nothing against Chris. I'm sure he's a perfectly nice guy. Or not. Anyway, here we go.
We have the 7th highest mortality rate in the world. Our mortality rate is higher than Brazil. It's higher than Russia. And the European Union has us on a travel ban.
Yeah, I think what we'll do, well, we have them on a travel ban too, Chris. I closed them off. If you remember, I was the one that did the European Union very early. But when you talk about mortality rates, I think it's the opposite. I think we have one of the lowest mortality rates in the world.
We're going to take a look. We had 900 deaths on a single day.
We will take a look.
This week.
Ready?
You can check it out.
Could you please get me the mortality rate?
Yeah.
Kaylee's right here. I heard we had one of the lowest, maybe the lowest mortality rate anywhere in the world. Do you have the numbers, please? Because I heard we had the best mortality rate.
The case fate of similarly situated countries, as Dr. Burks points out, and this is
number one low mortality rate. I hope you show the scenario because it shows what fake news is all about. Okay,
I don't think I'm fake news, but we'll put we'll put our stats on.
You said we had the worst mortality rate in the world.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So there you go, right? Like that's par for the course. This is the kind of thing that was going on with the mainstream media in general overall. And this is what everybody is so darn sick of. Really, really sick of. I mean, why are we having to deal with that kind of spin, this nonsense all the time? Like, you can't actually look at the real numbers. I mean, I'm blown away by, you know, is he a nice guy? I don't know. I will tell you, I think Tucker had a description of him as being kind of like ornery. And yes, I have worked with him in various, you know, live event situations where he definitely had some issues and was very demanding of producers. I mean, I get it, right? Like, you know, you're trying to, actually, as I am talking to you in real time, I'm trying to figure out something on the computer here so that we can get some more elements to you. But I think that is fundamentally sort of the problem there, that there's a bias and that bias cannot be ignored ever. So Chris Wallace is out of a gig. Chris Wallace is the first of the casualties there at CNN to go. And I would expect that we're going to see a few more along the way, right? At CNN, maybe MSNBC, and some of these others, because this is a whole new ballgame right now, ladies and gentlemen. It's just a different world, a very, very different world. Another story I wanted to tell you about at this moment in time, and it looks like I can't get these elements up, but that's okay, is this girl, this Disney actress that was really out over her skis. I want to remind you who she is. I'm talking about Rachel Zegler, who's going to be in Snow White. Maybe. if she can hang on to the job. Rachel Zegler is not a very nice person. And I know that because I happen to have seen some of the things that Rachel Zegler did say to Gina Carano back in the day. Gina Carano, who had a Disney contract, another actress, former she was a fighter. She didn't want to put her pronouns onto her profile. And so because of that, Rachel Zegler took issue with it. And eventually it became such a thing. I think she did like bibbidi bobbidi boo or something like that. And it became such an issue that she wound up getting fired for it. Why would you fire someone for something like that? Well, it's because Disney is what Disney is. And at the time, the woke police were going insane and Rachel Zegler was going insane. So they got rid of her. Gina Carano lost her job. Interestingly, Elon Musk to the rescue. He actually funded her lawsuit against Disney because it was wrongful termination in the state of California. Well, Rachel Zegler decided to get out in front of Donald Trump winning the election and said basically that there should be no peace for anybody who had voted for Trump. I mean, it was a really, really hateful message, complete with F-bombs everywhere, because apparently that's how the kids talk these days, these young ladies like Rachel Zegler. Little ingenue that she is, not a very nice little ingenue. Anyway, she said all this, and guess what? People noticed. We did it right here on the show. What did I say? There's no way that they should be employing this woman and putting her out there when this is the kind of nonsense she is spouting. This kind of rhetoric is what we need to get away from in America. You don't just throw the hate out there nonstop. It's not right. It's wrong. And she's your Snow White, Disney? Good luck. Bob Iger, I think you better re-examine who's in your little stable there for actors and actresses at Disney. No one's going to watch that movie. In fact, maybe you ought to just cancel it right now. Try and save a little bit of money. Well, Rachel suddenly realized that she had gone too far. So what did she do within a 24-hour cycle? Here I am on the show the very next day to tell you that Rachel has issued an apology. Yeah, because, apparently after so many people said she should just totally step down, she should be fired. Well, she realized that may not be such a good thing. So she, after saying, quote, may Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace, has now decided to come forward with a big apology. She didn't know what happened. Her emotions, they got the best of me, she said, after this really horrendous tirade. Yeah, they got the best of you. Let's go with that. You know what? I don't think anybody's going to forgive you. And I think we all know who you are. And that's that you're just not a very nice person. So why do I want to go spend money on your movie again? Why do I want to take 2 hours out of my life to go see your version of Snow White that's apparently not romantic at all? Because, who needs romance? What woman needs to actually go and get married? That's not the way it goes anymore, right? This actress may have just committed a career suicide from which I predict she's not going to be able to recover. And Disney, good luck. Oh, don't forget, guess who owns ABC News? Guess who owns The View? Disney. Disney. Bob Iger, you get yourself a little bit of a problem. You better keep looking for that conservative that's stupid enough to go on your stupid show with Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar. Lord knows it wouldn't be me. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. You heard me talking about one of our great sponsors here on the show a little bit earlier. You heard me talking about Balance in Nature, balanceinnature.com. You can go there and get 50% off and get the fruits and veggies if you want, like I do. Like I said, I've got my vitamin D levels back up where they need to be, which is important because I live in the Northeast and we don't have a whole lot of sun, especially this time of year. And this, Irish skin really somehow doesn't get enough vitamin D as it is. So I'm really happy I have it. It's a 50% discount that you can get right now. Just use my name, code word Trish, Trish. Use code word Trish. You can get the discount too. Again, go to balanceofnature.com, you guys. It's a great product. And a lot of people use it. Leslie, who's one of our frequent viewers here, we love Leslie. She's like, oh yes, I've been taking that stuff for years. And I thought it was interesting that My children's music teacher told me he'd been taking it for years too. What do you know? So while some of the media is coming around, as they should, not all of them are. Take a look at MSNBC. I want you to see this clip because AOC decided to go on TV there on MSNBC. And while the morning show may be sort of clued in to what's going on, and Joe Scarborough clearly is a survivor, I guess, AOC, on the other hand, she's doubling down. She's absolutely livid about Tulsi Gabbard. Take a listen.
And we haven't even gotten to Tulsi Gabbard potentially having access to national security information. And Russia loves it, loves her.
And I actually think almost more than Matt Gaetz, Tulsi Gabbard's appointment is devastating. And Tulsi Gabbard's nomination, as much as she says that she's an anti-war person, she's not.
Yeah.
She supports very pro-war individuals,
including in Syria.
And let's be very clear, a Tulsi Gabbard nomination is a pro-war nomination globally, point blank, period.
As is Donald Trump as president of the United States.
I mean, it's really out there. I'm just going to tell you, like, he's definitely not pro-war. I mean, I've had multiple conversations with him, and he's definitely not pro-war. He actually is a big believer in peace through strength, right? You got to be strong in order to ensure that peace. And Tulsi, her entire career is like anything but a warmonger. I mean, look, I'm sorry, but you can go back to the John Boltons of the world, who, by the way, don't like this appointment either, nor do they like Pete Hegseth. And they're way more pro-military fight, engage the military, than Tulsi or Trump. If anything, Trump's like all about the tariffs, he'll use sanctions any day of the week before he actually gets to committing troops because he doesn't want to lose any troops. I can tell you that. I know that. But anyway, this other lady goes on to CNN to talk about how, Pete Hegseth, one of my former colleagues at Fox, who has been the recipient of the Bronze Medal Award in the Army twice, who is a really smart guy who went to 2 Ivy League schools, got his undergrad from Princeton, worked on Wall Street, went back and got a master's in public policy from Harvard Kennedy School, back when, I have to keep saying that, back when that school actually was something, right? And because he works at Fox, apparently that's the be all end all. Anyway, this lady said some really aggressive stuff. If I'm Pete, now I want to sue. Getting back to where we started the show with Donald Trump saying, I'm going to sue you for defamation. I mean, this is bad stuff.
Had the Secretary of Defense nominee, Peter Hegseth, the Fox News commentator as well, because this is someone who, weekend host, important distinction. This is someone who, is known to be a white supremacist, known to be an extremist, whose platform, whose book is basically about his opposition to the advancement of black officers to the top brass. And
a white supremacist? He's an extremist? Because he actually thinks women should not be on the front lines of combat. Well, I guess that would just make him sexist. Or because he doesn't think that you should promote someone in the military just because they're black. Okay, been there, done that. That's getting kind of passe, this whole DEI nonsense. First of all, the Supreme Court voted against it. Harvard University, you can't choose someone that has like nothing on their SAT and nothing in their GPA just because of the color of their skin, right? Because that's not the kind of society we are. You actually have to earn your accomplishments. Boeing, what do you know? Boeing had to get rid of its whole DEI department a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it makes sense given that they've got planes falling out of the sky. Been there, done that. Wall Street actually has realized that. It's one of the reasons actually I created 76 Research, because I was so sick of the diversity, equity, inclusion, and the ESG nonsense going into how you had to think about stocks. I mean, can't we just be simple about this? We want a company that makes a lot of money. We want a company that is extremely profitable. And when you get the profitability and the money making, it makes for a good investment. Now, I'm not saying that companies do crazy things, right? I'm not arguing that by any stretch of the imagination, but I am saying that you can't be so myopic and obsessed with, do we have somebody with purple hair that's a transgender and like born a woman but is gay and thinks she's a man. I mean, like, it starts to get confusing. The BBC knows how confusing it is. They have 200 different genders that you can choose from in the HR department at the BBC. Let's not be the BBC. All right, we've got to actually be normal and respect the fact that we are the United States of America. Our universities need to respect that. And so Pete Hegseth is like, listen, you know, like, you get the job because you're good at the job in the military, and we need to be a meritocracy. Just like these networks need to accept that they need to be a meritocracy, that they actually need to put stuff on TV that people want to watch, and they can't have their ratings plummeting over and over again. The View really struggling with this, but inching closer and closer and closer as the panic level reaches here. They somehow thought that putting the New York City mayor on might do the job. Let's watch.
Significant move to the right in New York State. What do you attribute and you actually stated that you think you said the far left agenda is backfiring. What do you attribute the decline in support among Democrats in New York to, and what are Democrats getting wrong?
Well, okay, first I want to go back to your original comment. I was calling for the dismantling of hate in our country. Our Sikhs who are being attacked, LGBTQ members are being attacked, African Americans, Jews. I say let's dismantle the hate. And what you saw in this city, in this election, where you saw a shift and the state becoming redder, is because we stopped talking about working class people issues. When mom and pops are afraid, I can't pay my college tuition, the rent is too damn high, healthcare is too expensive. We stopped talking to everyday New Yorkers and Americans. When I'm in the street talking to them, they're not asking me, Eric, tell me about fascism. They're talking about finance. They're not talking about Hitler. They're talking about housing. We need to talk to everyday working class people, and we stopped doing that. And those are the issues that they are afraid of. They're afraid of the future of their children.
But the Democratic Party was addressing most of those issues with the infrastructure bill, for example, and keeping Medicare and Social Security safe. Why would they vote for the party that will hurt them? I didn't get that.
Well, you know, part of the business of campaigning is getting your message out and being clear on your message. Even the experts in their party were saying, get back to the message. What are we doing for everyday people in the country? And that's the same thing happened in 2022. When I got elected in 2022, I stated that, listen, we need to be talking about crime in this country. They ignored it. We lost the election. During 2023, I said we had to deal with this migrant and asylum seeker issue. It was on the top 1 or 2 issues in the country. We ignored it. We have to go back and talk to those issues that people are worried about.
Okay, we have to go back and have a commercial. We'll be right back.
It's really weird that they did things like defund the police or spent more money on migrants than they did, say, on homeless vets. I mean, the numbers are staggering, something like $66 billion versus $3 billion. I mean, this is wacky stuff. And it just kept getting out there and out there and out there. I mean, I don't know what to blame. Do we blame the party? Do we blame COVID? Meanwhile, there's still a contingency, please understand, of people out there. I mean, if the party doesn't change, they're going to have problems. AOC, meanwhile, we're just talking about her. AOC has just taken her pronouns off of her Twitter profile. They're gone. She's no longer she, her, whatever. That tells you something, right? It tells you that they're starting to wake up to this reality that they can't be absolutely crazy. And yet they've got a base. They got a base. I mean, did you see all the people? If you're on Twitter or if you're on TikTok, you might have seen some of this. Oh my gosh, they're so upset.
Spicy. You guys feel spicy?
This one's really upset.
All right. I don't know how to use.
They're like so upset they're cutting their hair upset.
Is this cutting off hair?
How does that help you?
Does it down, right?
I'd like to know.
This is too. It's getting hair.
Oh. Well, this is just going to look great.
Have I given up on America? Yeah. Also given up on coloring this hair because, right?
So this is a movement that's going on. It's called the 4B movement, where you're just opting out of, traditional femininity. You're going to opt out of trying to look good. You're going to opt out of having any relationship with a man because somehow that fixes everything. I mean, if you ask me, you're just opting out on yourself, girl. You're opting out on happiness. Why? And you're not going to look good. Let's fast forward her because, we might as well see the finished product. Here we go. Yeah. You know what? Not a good look.
Just entering my middle age.
Not a good look. But this is what's catching on social media. So we're seeing a bunch of women that are so upset that Donald Trump won that now they're just swearing off men.
I'm going to be honest. I was very blindsided by the results this morning. I've decided that cigarettes don't count today. And I honestly might go get a tattoo. But I also have decided that for the next 4 years, I am going to abstain from schmex with men. And funny enough, I actually just broke up with my boyfriend a handful of days before the election, and it had nothing to do with the anticipation of Donald Trump winning this election. It had everything to do with problems within our relationship and massive differences.
And I think you get all kinds of problems.
Who we were as people, which was unfortunate and sad.
Does anyone else think that maybe, just maybe, her breakup with the boyfriend, she's somehow taken out on Trump? Like now all men are bad. All men are bad. I mean, she goes on and on. Poor soul, right? Like I actually feel really bad for her.
Yeah, as a woman, my bodily autonomy matters. And this is my way to exercise sovereignty over that. So I highly encourage any other women that are single and care about progressing women's rights and still fighting for our bodily autonomy to do the same.
Okay, so no more dating, no more you know what, like it's over. And by the way, these are young women that are in the prime of their lives where I'm going to tell you something, okay? The hardest thing in life to get right is your spouse. Because you know what? You can't pick your family. You get your family, but you can pick your spouse. And if you get that one wrong, that kind of sets you up for a really, really bad situation, right? So you do actually want to be in the market for the right person, I hope. Unless you're going to take it all on yourself and just live a miserable existence as a single person. Listen, I can go back to every study. Every study will show you married people are happier. Married people are less stressed. Parents that parent together are a whole lot less stressed than the single moms. I mean, this is pretty obvious stuff, but they're all out there saying, I'm going to do this. I'm embracing 4B.
In my life. From this moment forward, who did you vote for? If I get anything aside from Kamala, get the out of my face.
Okay. So you see where we're going. There's going to be a contingency of people that are going to believe what they're going to believe, and they're going to sit there and they're going to continue to watch MSNBC. They're like the few hundred people that are actually watching MSNBC because most have left. Ratings down 51%. And they'll be encouraged. They'll be encouraged to double down on all of this. And isn't that sad? I mean, a really sad day for America. But, they'll lose out. They'll wake up one day. They'll have lost the opportunity to meet someone special and have a meaningful relationship. And that's on them. That's on them. I mean, of course, if Rachel Zegler has anything to say about it, Rachel Zegler would be perfectly fine with that. This is the girl, of course, Rachel Zegler, the Snow White, that's about to get fired, apparently, because nobody can stand her and her awful, hateful comments. She thinks you don't need a man. She's probably about to become 4B as well. 4B, incidentally, originated in South Korea. It was part of a response to a horrific attack on a woman there. So now they're just corrupting it, as they do, and trying to make it a new trend on social media. Here's Rachel saying, yeah, you don't need a man.
There is a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird. Super weird. So we didn't do that this time.
Yeah, you're weird. You're weird for what you said about how Donald Trump followers should never know peace. And now you're paying the price. Because now they want to get rid of you. So just like you see the ladies on The View trying to figure out, okay, what do we do? Whoopi's staying silent. Sonny's too tone deaf to actually understand what's going on. The others are actually starting to say, oh, you know what? I'm going to mellow out, and we're trying to find some conservative guests and stuff to put on the show. The pendulum always swings, does it not? Reminder, go check out investinmaga.com. Actually, we've got a really good piece coming out, I think later this afternoon, about cap gains and tax strategies and all this kind of stuff that's relevant for year end. Not to bore you, but it's important information. So I want to encourage you to go to 76 Research and sign up for it, or go to Invest in MAGA and you can get that free guide about what we anticipate is coming up next for the economy. Of course, they got to get through all these appointments and stuff. We'll see how that all shakes out. A reminder to go check out the shop, the Trish Regan shop. You can get your Live Free or Die mug right there. It's Friday, right? It's Friday. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. It has been quite a week. I may actually pop on live, so make sure you hit the bell for the subscribe button. I may come over and see some of you guys. I love talking to you, and I'm just going to quickly go out and I know so many of you have been chatting and you get your own thing going on, which I just love as you weigh in on all this stuff. Mike, so lovely to see you. Mike Costa, he's always here every day. I love it. Cat Crazy, you're back again too. I love it. I love it. Look, so many sort of regulars that we've got here. David Lorenzo as well being one of them. I appreciate you guys being here. I mean that peace of my mind as well. You guys all, I'm giving the same shout outs. I'm seeing some new names too. We have 1,788 likes. This is pretty great. Don Backus here telling you all to make sure that you like it. Do make sure that you like it. Do make sure you share it. I'm not worried at all about Donald Trump going out and making these lawsuits really public. Some people will say, oh, he's shutting down the media. And I'm saying, wait a second, can't the media have some accountability? I mean, you can't just go firing off whatever you want. You can't traffic in gossip anytime you want just because that person is a public figure. You got to have some responsibility, and that's important. We need that right now because there was none of it, shall we say, absolutely none. It's lovely to have you here. I appreciate it. I will see you, of course, live again on Monday and probably over the weekend. Until then, don't forget, investinmaga.com or 76research.com. See you there.